My name is Marcus Ngall, and after 15 years of saving, scraping, and dodging every HOA horror story on Reddit, I finally bought my own piece of freedom. A modest 3-bedroom ranch house sitting on 1.2 acres just outside the city limits of a mid-sized town in North Carolina. No covenants, no architectural review board, no monthly dues, no one telling me what color my mailbox could be. The realtor had practically whispered the magic words: non-HOA, completely unrestricted. I moved in on a crisp October morning. The first thing I did was park my 20-year-old F-150 right in the front yard. No garage yet, and let the tailgate down so I could sit there drinking coffee while the sun came up over the pines. It felt like breathing for the first time in decades. That peace lasted exactly 9 days. On day 10, I was in the side yard, chainsaw in hand, cutting down a dead sweet gum that had been threatening to drop limbs on the roof. Shirt off, ear protection on.
Excuse me, is that really necessary?
That's when the golf cart
it is.
appeared.
Why?
She
It's just a
rolled up
bit
the
loud,
gravel
sorry.
drive like she owned it. Pink polo, visor, clipboard, designer sunglasses, even though it was overcast. Mid-50s, maybe lips pursed so tight they looked like a surgical incision. Behind her trailed a second cart, driven by a nervous-looking man in khakis who kept glancing at his phone like he hoped it would summon backup. She stopped 10 feet from me, killed the engine, and stepped out with the confidence of someone who'd never once been told no. "You're on private property," she announced, voice loud enough to carry over the dying
Excuse me, is
growl
that
of my
really
chainsaw.
necessary?
I killed a saw,
It's
pulled
just
off
a
the
bit
earmuffs,
loud.
and
Sorry,
wiped
almost done.
sweat from my forehead. "Yeah, my private property. This is Willow Creek Estates," she said, as though reciting scripture. "Your lot is part of the community. You are in violation of multiple covenants." I laughed, couldn't help it. "Lady, I've got the deed in the kitchen. No HOA on it. Never was." The previous owner pulled out in 2008 when the association tried to force a special assessment for a new pool nobody wanted. Her smile was thin and sharp. "That's not how it works. The covenants run with the land. You inherited them when you purchased. I didn't inherit anything except a leaky faucet and some very opinionated squirrels. Look it up if you want. County records are public." She ignored that, flipped open her clipboard, and began reading aloud. Section 4.3, Exterior Maintenance. Section 7.1, Landscaping Standards. Section 12.4, Parking of Commercial Vehicles. "That truck," I said, pointing at my F-150, "is not a commercial vehicle. It's my truck. I use it to haul groceries and my own damn dignity." She didn't blink. "You are currently operating heavy machinery without proper permits, creating excessive noise during quiet hours, and exposing the neighborhood to safety hazards. I'm giving you 24 hours to cease all yard work and remove that eyesore from the front lawn." I stared at her for a long moment. Then I smiled, slowly, the kind of smile that makes people suddenly remember they have somewhere else to be. "Ma'am," I said, "you are standing on my land uninvited. That makes this trespassing. I'm going to ask you nicely once to leave." Her face flushed the color of her golf cart upholstery. "You do not speak to me that way. I am president of the Willow Creek HOA board, and I'm not in your HOA. So you're just a random woman on my property telling me what to do. Last chance." She took a step closer instead of retreating. "I'm calling the sheriff." I shrugged. "Go ahead. I'll wait." She actually did it, pulled out her phone, dialed, and put on speaker so I could hear. When the dispatcher answered, she launched into a performance worthy of community theater. "Yes, hello, this is Karen Whitaker, president of Willow Creek Estates HOA. We have an unauthorized resident who is trespassing on association property, operating dangerous equipment, and refusing to comply with governing documents. He's threatening me right now. I need deputies immediately." I raised both eyebrows. "Threatening?" I hadn't moved an inch. The dispatcher asked for the address. Karen rattled off my house number like she'd lived here longer than I had. Then she hung up, crossed her arms, and stared at me with the smug certainty of someone who'd already won. 10 minutes later, a sheriff's cruiser rolled up, lights off but still imposing. 2 deputies stepped out, young guy, maybe late 20s, and an older woman with the calm, tired eyes of someone who'd broken up 1,000 HOA wars. Karen immediately launched into her speech again, gesturing at me, my truck, The half-felled sweet gum, the sawdust, everything. The younger deputy took notes. The older one watched me. When Karen finally paused for breath, the woman deputy turned to me. "Sir, can you explain what's going on?" I kept my tone even. "I bought this house last month. It's non-HOA. Deeds inside if you want to see it. This lady drove onto my property without permission, started telling me what I can and can't do with my own yard. I asked her to leave. She refused and called you guys, claiming I'm trespassing on her HOA's land." The deputy looked from me to Karen. "Ma'am, is this your property?" Karen bristled. "It is part of the Willow Creek Estates planned community. But is the title in your name, or the HOA's name?" Silence. Beautiful, perfect silence. The younger deputy cleared his throat. "We can run the parcel real quick." They did. 5 minutes on the laptop and the cruiser confirmed what I already knew. My lot had been released from the HOA declaration 20 years earlier when the original owner paid a 5-figure fee to sever the covenants. The release was recorded. Ironclad. The older deputy walked back, handed Karen a polite but firm look. "Ma'am, this gentleman is correct. He is not part of the association, and you are currently on his private property without permission. I'm going to need you to leave the premises now." Karen's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "But the covenants are not enforceable against this parcel," the deputy finished. "You've been advised. If you return without his permission, it will be trespassing. Do you understand?" Karen looked like someone had just told her the sky was green. She spun on her heel, marched her golf cart, and peeled out, tires spitting gravel like angry hornets. The deputies stayed long enough to make sure she was gone. The older one gave me a small, knowing nod before they left. "Good luck, neighbor. She'll be back." She was. 2 days later, I woke to the sound of a tow truck idling in my driveway at 6:45 a.m. I stumbled outside in sweatpants to find Karen standing triumphantly beside a flatbed, while a driver hooked up my F-150. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted. "Vehicle in violation of community standards," she announced. "Towing at owner's expense." I stepped between the driver and my truck. "Get that chain off my property. Now." The driver hesitated. Karen waved a piece of paper. "I have board authorization." I pulled out my phone, hit record. "Say that again." "On camera. That you're towing a vehicle from private property you do not own, without the owner's consent, and against a direct order from the sheriff's department 2 days ago." Her confidence flickered. The driver muttered something about not wanting to get involved in a civil dispute and unhooked the chain. Karen stormed off again, this time in her SUV instead of the golf cart. I filed a police report for attempted theft and trespassing. They took it seriously enough to send another deputy out that afternoon. A different one. He listened, took photos of the tow truck strap marks on my bumper, and promised to have a talk with Mrs. Whitaker. She didn't stop. Over the next 3 weeks, she escalated, fake violation notices taped to my door, certified letters demanding $4,800 in back dues and fines, complaints to code enforcement about my unpermitted tree removal. They came, laughed, and left. Even a petition circulated among the neighbors claiming I was lowering property values. Most of the neighbors ignored her. A few actually came over to apologize. One older man, Mr. Delgado from 2 houses down, brought me homemade empanadas and said, "She's been terrorizing folks since '09. You're the first one who's pushed back." I didn't just push. I push hard. First, I sent a certified letter of my own through a real estate attorney who specialized in HOA disputes. Cost me $900, but worth every penny. The letter cited the recorded release, reminded her of the sheriff's warning, and demanded she cease all contact or face a civil suit for harassment, trespass, defamation, and tortious interference with contract. The tow truck company had been very cooperative once I explained the situation. She didn't respond, but she didn't stop either. So I went nuclear, quietly, legally, and irreversibly. I filed a civil suit in Superior Court seeking injunctive relief, damages, and attorney fees. I also filed a separate criminal complaint for harassment and repeated trespassing, backed by doorbell camera footage of her placing notices, driving across my lawn, and once, gloriously, trying to measure my grass height with a ruler while I was at work. The judge granted a temporary restraining order within 48 hours. The hearing was beautiful. Karen showed up in full HOA regalia, blazer, pearls, three-ring binder thick enough to stop a bullet. My attorney, a soft-spoken woman named Lauren who looked like she should be teaching yoga, presented the deed, the recorded release, the sheriff reports, the video, the tow truck driver's sworn statement. Karen's attorney, some poor junior associate who clearly drew the short straw, tried to argue that the spirit of the community superseded recorded documents. The judge didn't even let him finish the sentence. "Ma'am," he said to Karen, "you have been told repeatedly and by multiple authorities that this property is not subject to your association. You have ignored those instructions and engaged in a pattern of behavior that any reasonable person would consider harassment. I am granting the permanent injunction. You are prohibited from entering the plaintiff's property, contacting him except through legal counsel, or directing any third party to do so on your behalf. You will pay the plaintiff's attorney fees and costs. And if I see you in my courtroom again on this matter, I will not be this polite." Karen sat there, stunned, while the gavel cracked like a gunshot. She hasn't spoken to me since, but I still see her sometimes, driving past on a main road, slowing just enough to glare through tinted windows. I always wave. Big, friendly, ear-to-ear grin. Last week I finally finished clearing the sweet gum. Planted 3 red maples in its place. They're young, but they'll grow tall. Tall enough to block her view of my house from the street. And every morning I still sit on the tailgate of my F-150, parked proudly in the front yard, drinking coffee while the sun rises. No one tells me where I can park. No one tells me what I can plant. No one tells me who I have to be. My name is Marcus Ngall, and this is what freedom tastes like.